Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a huge cultural idea. You know the one, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We hear it all the time, but let's find out what the actual science has to say about it.
All right, to get started, I want you to picture a scene. I guarantee you've seen some version of this 100 times in movies or on TV.
So you have the wife, she comes home, she's ready to connect, she wants to talk about all the complicated stuff that happened at work. And then there's the husband. He kind of grunts, gives a few one-word answers, and you can just feel him wanting to disappear into his man cave. It's this classic setup that hammers home the idea that we're just wired differently.
And let's be honest, this idea feels so real, right? It feels so intuitive. But what happens when we step away from the sitcoms and actually look at the hard data from psychology? Well, turns out the real story is completely different.
In fact, scientists actually have a name for this kind of thing. They call it psych mythology. Basically, it's for all those popular beliefs about psychology that feel true, but when you put them under a microscope, they just fall apart. And yeah, the whole men and women are from different planets idea, it's a classic example.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to tackle one of the most famous facts that's used to support this whole myth. The idea that women are just way more talkative than men. You have probably heard this statistic before. It was made super famous in the book The Female Brain. It claims that women use about 20,000 words a day, while men, they only use about 7,000. I mean, that's a gigantic difference, right? No wonder it spread like wildfire.
But here's the thing. When actual researchers went looking for the study that this number came from, they found absolutely nothing. No data, no research paper. It turns out it was traced back to self-help books, not a science lab.
So, you can guess what happened next. Scientists decided to find out the truth for themselves. A psychologist named Matthias Mehl and his team set up a real study to get the actual numbers.
So what they did was they gave hundreds of college students these little electronic recorders that tracked everything they said all day. And they found that women spoke, on average, right around 16,000 words a day.
And what about the men? Well, get this. They also spoke about 16,000 words a day. The difference between them was so small, it was statistically completely meaningless. That huge talkativeness gap we've all heard about, it's just not there.
And that amazing finding really shows you why we can't just go on gut feelings. To really know if a difference between two groups is a big deal, science needs a way to measure it precisely.
So, in psychology, one of the main tools for this is something called Cohen's d. Just think of it like a ruler for differences. It doesn't just tell you if there's a difference, it tells you how big that difference is. Is it tiny? Is it huge? This is what tells us.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. On this chart, a Cohen's d of 0.2 is what scientists consider a small effect. But when you measure the real difference in talkativeness, or even who interrupts who more, the numbers are minuscule, even smaller than what science would call a small effect. We're talking about tiny variations.
And that's because, as it turns out, context is everything. Research shows that things like interruptions have a lot more to do with who has power or authority in a conversation than what their gender is. In fact, in settings where women are in charge, they tend to interrupt more.
So all these tiny little differences start to make perfect sense when we zoom out and think about the big picture. You know, how the human brain actually evolved over millions of years.
The psychologist Steven Pinker puts it this way. Our brains are basically problem-solving computers. And for thousands of generations, all humans, men and women, had to solve the exact same set of basic survival problems. And that's the key takeaway right here. Evolution gave all of us the same standard equipment. We all needed to develop language. We all needed to understand each other. We all needed social skills just to survive. So deep down, we're all running on the same core operating system.
So, what's the point of all this? Why does debunking this myth actually matter for our relationships and our day-to-day lives? Well, it matters a lot.
Think about it. When we just chalk up every argument or misunderstanding to, oh, we're from different planets, it's kind of a cop-out. It stops us from looking for the real reasons we're not connecting. You know, things like stress or different personality styles, or maybe someone just had a really bad day.
I absolutely love this quote from a communication scholar named Catherine Dindia. She says a much better analogy is that men are from North Dakota and women are from South Dakota. You're not from different planets, you're neighbors. You share a country, you pretty much speak the same language, you just have some minor regional differences.
And really, that's the bottom line here. We are not two completely different species when it comes to how we communicate. We're just two variations of the same human model, built on the exact same foundation and running the exact same fundamental software.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If we can just stop obsessing over these tiny, overblown differences that we think divide us, we can finally start to see and appreciate the enormous shared humanity that actually connects us. And according to the science, that is where real communication begins.